You're a disgrace to this family. My father's voice boomed through our suburban Chicago living room. How could you take out all these loans and just refuse to pay them back? There's over $50,000 here. I stood there, feeling the weight of accusation from every corner of our cream-colored living room, trying to keep my composure while my twin sister Eliza sat silently on the leather couch, examining her perfectly manicured nails. The stack of collection letters scattered across the coffee table screamed my name, Emma Mitchell. Except I had never opened any of those accounts. "Dad, I swear I didn't take out these loans," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos erupting inside me. "Someone must have stolen my identity. Look at these banks. I've never even heard of First National in Des Moines or that credit union in Milwaukee." My father's face turned an even deeper shade of red as he waved another letter in my face. "Enough lies. Eliza told me she saw you shopping at Nordstrom and Saks, buying designer bags. Where did that money come from if not these loans? You work as an assistant teacher, for God's sake." I turned to look at my twin sister, really look at her for the first time that evening. Her Gucci bag sat casually by her feet, probably worth 3 months of my salary. The diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist caught the afternoon light streaming through our bay windows, and her Louboutin heels seemed to mock my sensible Target flats. When had she started affording such luxuries on her receptionist's salary at the dental office? "Until you come clean and take responsibility," my father continued, pacing the room like he used to when we were teenagers who broke curfew. "I want you out of this house. Pack your things tonight. Your mother and I didn't raise you to be this irresponsible." Mom stood in the kitchen doorway, wringing her hands in her apron, saying nothing. She always deferred to Dad in matters of discipline, but her silence cut deeper than his words. "Mom," I pleaded, "you know me. You know I wouldn't do this." Eliza finally looked up, her face a perfect mirror of mine yet somehow completely foreign. "Emma, just tell the truth. We all make mistakes," she said softly, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "The longer you deny it, the worse it gets." That night, as I packed my bags with shaking hands in my childhood bedroom, I couldn't stop thinking about Eliza's transformation over the past year. The designer clothes had started appearing gradually. Then came the expensive vacations, the mysterious weekend trips to Milwaukee and Des Moines where she claimed to be visiting friends. She'd even upgraded her ancient Honda to a brand new BMW, telling everyone it was a really good lease deal. Something wasn't adding up, and as I folded my modest wardrobe into my suitcase, a sickening realization began to take shape. The locations of these mystery loans matched perfectly with Eliza's weekend getaways. And who better to steal someone's identity than their identical twin? My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend and coworker, Mia. "You can stay with me as long as you need. This whole thing smells fishy, and we're going to figure it out." I took one last look around my room, grabbed my laptop and important documents, and walked out past my sister's closed door. Through the wood, I could hear her laughing on the phone, probably planning her next shopping spree with my stolen identity. The next morning at Jefferson Elementary School, I tried to focus on helping my third graders with their multiplication tables, but my mind kept drifting to the stack of fraudulent loans in my name. During recess, Mia cornered me in the teacher's lounge. "Okay, spill everything," she said, sliding a fresh coffee toward me. "When did these loans start appearing?" I pulled out my credit report on my phone. The first one was opened in Milwaukee about 8 months ago. That's when Eliza said she was visiting her college roommate there. The same sister who suddenly started carrying $4,000 handbags. Mia raised an eyebrow. "You know, my cousin works for the fraud department at Chase. She says identity theft between twins is more common than you'd think because they can pass basic photo ID checks." Something clicked in my brain. "Wait a minute," I said, pulling up Facebook on my phone. "Look at Eliza's posts from the last year." We scrolled through dozens of photos. Eliza at rooftop bars in Milwaukee, shopping in Des Moines, having lunch in Madison. Every single location matched a fraudulent loan on my credit report. But here's the weird part. I pointed to a photo of her at a bank, supposedly celebrating getting a promotion at work. "She's wearing my blue blazer. I thought I'd lost it months ago." Mia leaned closer. Emma, look at the name tag in that photo. It's blurry, but that definitely starts with an M, not an L. My hands started shaking. She's been deliberately dressing like me to go to these banks. That's why she kept asking to borrow my clothes last year, saying she wanted to look more professional at work. We need to document everything, Mia said, switching into organization mode like she did before parent-teacher conferences. Every photo, every loan, every time she was in these cities. And you need to pull your complete credit report. That evening in Mia's apartment, we spread everything across her dining room table. Bank statements, credit reports, social media screenshots, and even old text messages from Eliza asking to borrow specific items of my clothing. Look at this, Mia said, pointing to a loan application we'd managed to obtain. The signature isn't quite right. She copies your style, but the M in Mitchell is different from how you write it. My phone buzzed with a text from Eliza. Hey sis, I know you're going through a rough time. Why don't we meet for coffee tomorrow? I have some advice that might help. I showed the message to Mia, who snorted. Yeah, I bet she has advice. Probably wants to make sure you're not figuring things out. Should I meet her? I asked, though my gut was screaming no. Actually, Mia said slowly, a plan forming in her eyes, maybe you should. But first, we need to talk to my cousin at Chase. And Emma? Bring a recording device. The pieces were starting to come together, but confronting my twin sister about stealing my identity would be the hardest thing I'd ever done. Yet as I looked at the evidence spread across the table, I knew I had no choice. Eliza hadn't just stolen my identity. She'd stolen my relationship with our parents, my reputation, and my trust. I agreed to meet Eliza at Starbucks on Michigan Avenue, the expensive downtown location she always preferred. Before going, Mia's cousin Sarah from Chase had shown us the security footage from one of the bank locations. Watching my sister pretend to be me made my stomach turn, right down to the way she'd copied my nervous habit of tucking hair behind my left ear. Eliza was already there when I arrived, dressed in Lululemon athleisure wear that probably cost more than my weekly salary. The irony wasn't lost on me. For once, she wasn't trying to look like me. Oh, Emma, she said, pushing a vanilla latte toward me, I ordered your usual. I've been so worried about you. I took the seat across from her, positioning my phone carefully on the table. The recording app was already running. Have you? That's funny because I've been worried about you too. Me. She laughed, but I caught the slight tremor in it. I'm not the one in trouble. Actually, I pulled out a manila envelope and removed the bank security photos. Laying them out one by one, I think you are. This is you in Milwaukee on March 15th, wearing my blue blazer and taking out a personal loan in my name. This is you in Des Moines a month later, opening a line of credit as Emma Mitchell. And this, I saved the clearest photo for last, is you last week in Madison, attempting to open another account. The color drained from her face. Our identical features showed shock, then fear, then something I'd never seen before. Pure, cold calculation. Those could be either of us, she said quietly. We're identical twins, Emma. No one could prove which one of us was really there. Except the bank's cameras caught you arriving in your BMW. And your cell phone records place you in each city on those exact dates. Plus, I pulled out one more document, you signed all the paperwork with your right hand. I'm left-handed, Eliza. Always have been. She took a long sip of her drink, probably buying time to think. Around us, the cafe buzzed with normal afternoon activity, people completely unaware of the drama unfolding at our table. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I want you to come clean to Mom and Dad. I want you to confess to the banks and take responsibility for the loans. And I want to know why. Why would you do this to me? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I'd grown up with Eliza. I knew her crying tricks. It wasn't supposed to get this big, she said. I just needed a little money at first. Then it got so easy. The banks never questioned anything because your credit was perfect. You've always been the responsible one, the reliable one. Just once, I wanted to live like I didn't have to worry about money. So you decided to destroy my life instead? I was going to pay everything back. She insisted. I just needed more time. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. Here's what's going to happen. You have two choices. Either you come with me right now to tell Mom and Dad the truth and start making this right, or I take all this evidence to the police. Your call. An hour later, we were back in our parents' living room, the same room where I'd been thrown out just days before. This time, though, I had the upper hand and Eliza knew it. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice firm as I laid out the evidence on the coffee table, just as the collection letters had been displayed days ago. Eliza has something she needs to tell you. Our father looked up from his crossword puzzle, irritation crossing his face. Emma, if this is another attempt to deny. Let her speak, Richard, Mom interrupted, and I saw something in her eyes. Maybe she'd had her own suspicions all along. Eliza sat perched on the edge of the couch, looking smaller somehow in her expensive clothes. She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked at me pleadingly. I shook my head. This had to come from her. She started, her voice cracking. I took out those loans. All of them. I pretended to be Emma. The crossword puzzle dropped from Dad's hands. Mom pressed her fingers to her lips. I used her identity because her credit was perfect, Eliza continued, words tumbling out faster now. I'd dress like her, copy her signature. I knew which banks to go to where nobody would know us. I spent all the money. On clothes, trips, my car. Your BMW, Dad said slowly, realization dawning. The one you said was a special lease deal. I spread out the bank photos across the table. She used my identity to take out over $50,000 in loans. She knew my social security number, had access to my mail, even stole my clothes to look more like me at the banks. Mom started crying quietly. Dad's face had gone from red to white, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. All this time, he turned to Eliza, his voice shaking. You let us believe Emma was lying. You let me throw your sister out of this house. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Eliza whispered. I was going to pay it back. With what money? I asked. Your receptionist's salary? Or were you planning to take out more loans in my name? Dad stood up suddenly, making us all jump. We're going to the police. No. Eliza leaped up. Please, Daddy, I'll fix this. I'll sell everything, get a second job. Emma, she turned to me desperate, please don't press charges. We're sisters. Sisters don't destroy each other's lives, Mom said quietly, and the disappointment in her voice seemed to hit Eliza harder than Dad's anger. I pulled out one final document from my bag. This is a confession I had drawn up by a lawyer. Sign it, take responsibility for the loans, and I won't go to the police. But if you ever try anything like this again. Eliza grabbed the papers and signed without even reading them, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the pen. The next few months felt like watching a play I'd been cast in without knowing the script. Eliza sold her BMW, moved back home into our old bedroom, and took a second job waiting tables to start paying back the loans. Her designer clothes disappeared one by one on consignment sites. The diamond tennis bracelet went to a pawn shop. Dad insisted on weekly family meetings where Eliza had to show her progress on the repayments. I attended a few, sitting quietly as she presented bank statements and payment confirmations. It was strange seeing her stripped of her glamorous facade, wearing plain clothes from Target, her nails no longer professionally manicured. I never meant to hurt you, she told me one evening, catching me alone after a family dinner. I was jealous. You always had everything together. Perfect credit, steady job, Mom and Dad's trust. I wanted to know what that felt like. So you decided to steal it instead of earning it? I asked, not bothering to hide the bitterness in my voice. She looked down at her hands, bare now of the expensive rings she used to wear. I know sorry isn't enough. It wasn't, but watching her actually work to make things right meant something. The banks cleared my credit after receiving Eliza's confession, though my lawyer warned it would take time for my credit score to fully recover. Mom helped me find a small apartment nearby, insisting on paying the security deposit herself. It's the least we can do, she said, her eyes filling with tears. We should have believed you from the start. Dad showed up one weekend with a new deadbolt and security cameras. No one's stealing your identity again, he declared, spending the whole day installing everything. I didn't tell him that the real threat had never been from outside. At school, Mia helped me navigate the aftermath. You know what's crazy? She said during lunch break. Your sister thought she needed to steal your identity to be successful, but look at her now, actually working hard for the first time in her life. Maybe this whole mess will end up teaching her what you knew all along. 6 months after the confrontation, I received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a note from Eliza, first installment. 4 more to go. I'm sorry for everything. I deposited the check but didn't respond to the note. Some trust, once broken, takes more than money to repair. But as I watched my credit score slowly climb back up and saw Eliza actually working to make things right, I began to hope that maybe, years from now, we might find a way to be sisters again. Just not identical ones.